know your why. Clarify why you're doing it. It's not enough to just set the goal. Clarifying why. Why is the goal important? And if you can visualize that, and I think going back to kind of when I'm coaching my financial planning clients, is really get clarity, get real visual on what it is when you wake up the first day of your retirement and you open your eyes and your 2 feet hit the floor. What's it like?
I think with clarity comes meaning. When you have clarity, there's meaning to what you're doing. And when you have more meaning around your goals and those things that you're trying to achieve, that allows you to live a more intentional and purposeful and authentic life. You are absolutely right. It's time again for the Truest Fan Blueprint. I'm Rob Brown, along with my co-host, Phil Calandra. Hey, Phil.
Hi, Rob. Let's do this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the great things about doing this podcast in the format that we do is that the topics that we bring up are both topics that we're engaged with our clients in all the time. Plus, they build upon each other. And I just love the way that this particular topic comes directly as a result of something that we said in the last episode when we were talking about the difference between motivation and discipline. And
Right.
What came up was this idea that goal setting is hard. When I meet with someone who is a potential client of my practice as a coach. And Phil, I know you do this as a coach, but also as an actively practicing financial advisor. When you say, let's talk about your goals, sometimes things, really get shut down because coming up with goals can be hard. And I'll get somebody to say, well, I don't want to become a coaching client of yours if I've got to set goals, which sounds really silly because why would you hire a coach if you didn't want to accomplish some goals? But what we think is really important to point out is that we do all have goals. Maybe we haven't written them down so they don't feel like you've set goals. But most importantly, most people do have goals. They have them in their mind. And our jobs, whether we're acting as financial advisors, as coaches to advisors, as coaches to entrepreneurs, help clarify those goals, really pull them out and make them clear. Phil, jump in. Tell me kind of what your initial take is on that before we dive in deeper.
Yeah, for sure. My initial take is that this is one of those topic areas, Rob, that had all the meaning beaten out of it. We've been told for years we need to set goals. I mean, when you were in grade school, they were talking about goal setting. And so when you go through or you have a topic that's had all the meaning beaten out of it, how effective is it really? And the thing that I was reminded of when we were kind of setting the stage for this show together is working with investing clients, working with my retirement planning clients. A client can't invest successfully for retirement if they can't imagine that retirement. And that speaks to the clarification of the goal. If goal setting has no relevance and all the meaning's been beaten out of it, then reshape that for yourself and clarify the goal. Don't set it. We all do that. We're now within 3 months of a new year. And what's the number one goal that everybody sets as the resolution? Is to lose weight or get in shape. That becomes your goal. You set it, but do you really clarify it? And I think that's the distinction we're trying to make today.
Yes, absolutely. As you were talking, Phil, a conversation that I had just a few months ago with a client who was clarifying their goals comes to mind. Because when we were going through our planning process, and those of you who are not familiar with our planning process, we call it the Truest Fan Blueprint, where we first help our clients decide what their big dreams are. What does their life look like in 10 years? And then we pull that back and say, well, what does your 3-year vision look like? So as you're moving towards that big dream, what's your vision? What's your picture of things 3 years from now? And then we take another step back, and that's where we do the first round of goal setting, and it's goal setting for a year. And I asked the client, well, what are your goals for next year? And he says, well, I want to make more money. Well, since it's a business coaching situation, somebody who owns their own business, making more money, growing their revenue seems like a logical thing to do. And then I said, why? Why is that important? He goes, well, because, I've been told ever since I was in the business that I should grow my business, at least 10 or 12 or 15% per year. So that's always been my goal. But, well, what are you going to do with that extra money? And in this case, this client had his last child graduate from college. So accumulating money for some of those family things was gone, which was a big motivation for why he wanted to make more money in the past. He wanted to pay tuition. But now it's like, okay, what are you going to do with that more money? What are you going to attach that to? And then we talked about some traveling that he wanted to do with his wife now that they were empty nesters. And so clarifying the goal was turning, I want to make more money, into, we're going to make more money, but we're going to use that money for this trip that they were going to define. And that's, I think, what you were getting to, Phil, was creating that picture of that goal. So what does that really mean to you? It's not just the money.
Yeah. And to your point, what I heard you say in another terminology was clarifying the goal is getting under what I would call under the iceberg, right? Think of it this way. What you see, or the tip of the iceberg, is very surface. It's maybe what the goal was, making more money. But then when you get drilled down and you actually drop below the tip and you look what's under the surface, the bottom of that iceberg is massive compared to the tip. And that's where the clarity comes from. That's where the power comes from and this is how it ties in my mind, to discipline. If you want to make more money, then what are the disciplines that you need to undertake after you've clarified, well, because I'm an empty nester and because we want to take that Mediterranean cruise. I'm not talking about the Carnival cruise around Miami and Bahamas. I'm talking about the $15,000 Mediterranean cruise. You're clarifying and getting underneath the iceberg. And that's where the magic happens. And a lot of people never get to that magic. And that's what we're trying to point out to people.
Yeah, because I think with clarity comes meaning. When you have clarity, there's meaning to what you're doing. And when you have more meaning around your goals and those things that you're trying to achieve, that allows you to live a more intentional and purposeful and authentic life. And so the goals they just feel good. They fit like a glove versus, buying a glove, like a well-worn glove versus the glove you take off the shelf for the first time. And yeah, it fits your hand, but it's kind of loose and it's bouncing around and you're wondering if it's really going to keep you warm.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what Simon Sinek built his whole framework around more than a decade ago, right? Know your why. Clarify why you're doing it. It's not enough to just set the goal. I want to lose 30 pounds in the new year. Well, that's not good enough. Why do you need to lose 30 pounds? Well, because I'm overweight, I have high blood pressure, cholesterol's off the chart, and if I don't do that, I'm not going to be able to take the Mediterranean cruise or enjoy the rest of my life because I'm going to have health ailments. I mean, I'm just going off on a rant, but that's where it really gets tested. Clarifying why. Why is the goal important? And if you can visualize that, and I think going back to kind of when I'm coaching my financial planning clients, is really get clarity, get real visual on what it is when you wake up the first day of your retirement and you open your eyes and your 2 feet hit the floor. What's it like? Do you hear birds chirping? Is it a little chilly in the air, or do you feel sun beaming in? What is the first thing that you're going to think about? Probably not getting in the shower and shaving and getting ready to put on the tie and go to the office. It's going to be about, where am I eating breakfast? It's on a veranda and it's nice and it's a balmy 70 degrees with sun and I hear the ocean crashing. That begins to paint the picture. That's the clarity. If you
Yeah.
get to that
Yeah.
level, folks, you're going to get to a level of impact. And that's what we say in the Truest Fan is live with purpose. How can you live with purpose if you haven't clarified what it is that's really important? Clarify your goals. Don't just set goals.
Yeah, yeah.
Clarify 'em.
I, for those of you who are watching this on YouTube, the expression on Phil's face there was priceless because you could just see how excited he was in talking about the importance of having clarification and purpose behind goals. And then we said, don't just set goals. He threw his hands up in the air like, gosh, I've heard that a
Yeah.
million times. And
Well,
as you
because
were
people
talking,
fall short. You're going to fall
yeah,
short.
yeah,
If you don't have a mental picture of, when I was training for my first Ironman triathlon, all I could do was put into my mind what it would be like to hit the red carpet, which is the last about 10 meters, 25 yards, and cross the finish line. And I impregnated that in my visual, my psyche. What do they call that? Imprinting. It works.
yeah.
It works.
It does.
Clarity.
It does. Yeah, we could probably go on with a million different examples, but I want to share one more. And then, Phil, let's land the plane and give some
Sure.
practical tips that listeners can take away from this episode to begin clarifying their goals. And I want to share this example because it takes it back to something that we do all the time with our advisor and business owner clients. We're helping them set goals sometimes around building a team. So a goal might be, a surface level goal might be, I need to add 2 people to my team to fill these 2 roles. And again, sounds like a really logical thing to do. If there's an opening on your org chart for 2 roles, you need to fill them. But then when you take a step back and ask yourself, well, why are those roles really important? Why do you want to do them? It's going to cost you more money. You're going to have to do interviews. You're going to have more people on your team. Sometimes people aren't easy. So it can create lots of different dynamics. But in this particular case, the advisor, my client, reminded me that his big goal is to make sure that within the next few years, his business can run without him because he has other things that he wants to do. He's not ready to retire or sell his business. It's not a succession plan, but he knows that he needs to be able to have a business that if he isn't there, that it can run successfully without him. So that was a great clarification. And in my case, he was reminding me of something that we had talked about before. So sometimes those goals can, slip out of sight. But Phil, as we land the plane here, if you were to give like an action item that somebody could take right now as they're thinking about their goals, what would that first step be?
I think the first thing in clarifying the goals for me, it's writing. If I can see it, I can envision it, then I have a lot better capacity to live it. So if you have some goals, maybe it's your the fourth quarter of 2023, maybe it is in preparation for your TFAP, your action plans for 2024. If you don't know what we're speaking about, contact us. We'll get you a copy of the Truest Fan Action Plan. Be descriptive. Write it down. Write down and visualize clearly. Spell it out. Like I was talking about the first day of your retirement. What does that look like? What do you hear? What do you see? Use your senses. And bulldoze. Don't let this be a roadblock. Let this be an enhancer to you reaching what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, great tip, because you start by saying, okay, I'm just going to write down my first handful of goals. And then as you look at them, ask yourself, well, why did I write that down? What happens as a result of that? Who will be around me? What kind of success will that propel? And then you get the clarification and you add meaning to that goal. So maybe even the words on the page don't change, but you have an understanding of why you put the words on the page to begin with. And that's a big part of the Truest Fan blueprint and the action plan. As Phil mentioned, if you like a copy of the Truest Fan action plan, just go to truestfan.com/TFAP, TFAP, and you can get a free copy. We'd love to give that to you. So Phil, I think that's a wrap. Good conversation. And for everybody listening, thank you for listening. We love for you to share this show with others. That's really important for us to build our community, to get more and more people engaged in the process of living more purpose-filled lives. And as always, remember, we're rooting for your success.